Hi, my name is Morty Oberstein. I'm the CMO of Rank Ranger, and I want to talk to you today about featured snippet deduplication. What has happened, what has not happened, and what's been a little bit problematic along the way. So let's start with January 22nd. Google says, hey, we're deduplicating the organic URL that represents the featured snippet. In other words, feature snippets have a URL within the box itself, and that same URL was showing up among the top ranking results on page 1 of the SERP. So two URLs on the same page, what a win. Google said, hey, that's not going to be the case anymore. We're deduplicating that your organic URL, which means the only URL that's going, the only time the URL is going to show up is in the featured snippet itself. Now, what was happening when Google started doing this was the URL that was ranking on page 1 in the organic results was showing up on page 2 of the SERP. It was showing up as the very first result on page 2 of the SERP. And we looked at a deep data set on this. I found that every single instance of featured snippets with the URL ranking on page 1, the URL had now moved to the top of the page 2 SERP. And of course, that looks sort of like, well, Google, are you manually placing that URL there? Which of course brings up questions of manual manipulation. Oh, the horror. Which of course was not the case. Google said, no, that's not the case. There's no guarantee where you're going to rank with that URL now. It could be page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. I can keep counting, or it may not rank at all. And lo and behold, a few days later, I was looking at some featured snippets. I'm like, I wonder what happened with that URL that was now ranking at the top of page 2, and it was gone. And we ran a deep data set again, and we found that it was totally gone. Google has completely deduplicated the URL. The only instance at all of the URL ranking is in the featured snippet itself. Now, this brings up the question of the right-hand side showing featured snippets. So Google has this thing that looks sort of like a knowledge panel, and a featured snippet got married and had a baby. It appears to the right of the organic results. It's this big old, gazunta box, as my grandmother would say, and it has a URL in there. Now, with the deduplication, the only time that URL was showing up was at the right side of the page, which meant that the only time the user would see it is if they scanned over to the right side of the page, and CTR was becoming a factor and becoming an issue for some people. And people started to complain. And Google said, hey, we hear you, which was really great. And Google said, we're going to move that right side showing feature snippet to the main column to address your CTR concern. So moral of the story, if life hands you something that you don't like, you should keep complaining and complaining and complaining until something happens. But really good job by Google saying that we're going to move that and so forth. Now fast forward a few days after Google said that, and people were noticing that the right-hand side feature snippet did not move over, but what was happening was that Google reduplicated the URL. The URL represented by that right-hand side feature snippet was again showing in the organic results. So your CTR concerns have been addressed. Let me show you what this looks like. Pardon me a second while I switch my screen here. Okay, this is an Explore panel. We call it an Explore panel because that's what Google calls it in the HTML, and it basically looks like a knowledge panel and a feature snippet, like I said. And you see the URL here, and Google has placed the URL for the BBC right here. So the URL is back in the main column of the organic results. Really cool point, by the way. When I was running this last night to prepare for this video, I noticed that the New York Times was a URL in the Explore panel in this right-hand side featured snippet. It had the organic result, of course, and it was also ranking the top stories box. So 3 top showing URLs, and that's pretty cool. Now, since we're talking about hybrid SERP features, here is a combination of a direct answer and a featured snippet. You can see it's all direct answer up top and all featured snippet on the bottom. It's like the mullet of featured snippets. The URL here has always been showing on the SERP. It was never deduplicated. I've been tracking this the whole way through. It has not been deduplicated. I'm not sure if it's meant to be or if Google hasn't gotten to it yet, but for any of these queries that bring up the direct answer feature snippet, like BB King Guitar, famously named Lucille, you get the Wikipedia URL, and you get the Wikipedia URL again in the organic results. Again, not sure if that's an aberration or not, but that's the case so forth. Oh, I meant to add, by the way, with the Explore panel, the right-hand side feature snippet, we ran 5,000 queries, keywords that bring up this right-hand side feature snippet, and in every single case, the URL was back within the organic results, so no need to fret. What Google will do here, that's a good question. Will it amend its original announcement and say, hey, we're going to keep status quo, URL in the organic results, URL on the right-hand side feature snippet, or is more change coming? Is Google going to eventually, like I said it would, originally move that featured snippet on the right-hand side to the main column? Now, this brings up another problem, and that's what to consider the featured snippet. You can't call it the zero position box anymore because it's organic 1. Google's pretty much said that Google has said rather that the featured snippet is now the top ranking organic result. Now this makes rank tracking a little bit complicated. So word to the wise, when you see that you rank number 1, you have to be able to understand what that means, because ranking number 1 as your typical organic result, right? You know, title, description, URL, and ranking number 1 as a feature snippet are not the same thing, right? Big old box, lots of words, very attractive, picture in there perhaps, is far more clickable than your typical standard organic result. So when you now show up number 1, what does that mean? Are you number 1 as a featured snippet, or are you number 1 as your typical standard traditional organic result? Be sure to make sure that you look into and make sure that you know which type of number 1 ranking you have. So again, will be interesting to see what happens with that right side showing organic, that right side showing featured snippet. Will it be placed into the main column, or will Google revert back and say, hey, we're taking that back, we're going to keep it on the side with this duplicate URL still in there? So fascinating, very interesting, perhaps a little bit stressful what's going on right now, but that's what it is. And we'll see what happens, because a lot of change going on. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I hope this was really helpful. Hope this was enjoyable. And I hope to see you at SMX West coming up soon. I'll be there. I hope you'll be there. I hope to chat with you. I hope you chat with me. It'd be really great to meet with you at SMX West, which is coming up really soon. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.